as you can see, the headlights and the safety bumper are back on Project Risky Business. My $4,000 1985 Porsche 928S barn find. This is the latest installment in my weekly updates. And the past week I had hoped to get a little bit more progress than I did, but wiring got in the way. In this video I'm going to take you through how I finished in reinstalling the fixed blower motor resistor coil pack, how I removed, cleaned, and reinstalled the blower motor and the resistor pack, as well as what I ran into with reinstalling the headlight bar and safety inner bumper in preparation for painting the external front bumper. Stay tuned. So if you watched last week's episode, I troubleshoot the blower motor resistor pack. I had intermittent, what's known as magic blower syndrome or intermittent blower syndrome. And I need to thank somebody for this, and it's Hank Menkes. I didn't mention that in my last video, but he's a friend and supporter from the local Porsche Club chapter, and he's very knowledgeable in resistors and electronics. So I picked his brain on how to fix that coil, and his efforts and research helped tremendously, so I thank him for that. Early in the week I focused on reinstalling it. Now, one of the things I had hoped to do is, in order to remove the blower motor, other videos out there and descriptions say you have to remove the hood, and some people say you don't have to remove the hood. Well, I could speak for the 85 model, which I would think is pretty similar, at least through the 86.5 models from 78 on. And that is, you do need to loosen the hood to get to this. The first thing I'm doing here is that's the washer tubes that feed the nozzles on the hood. So I was removing those to gain access. Right now, this bolt here that's my left hand holding the socket, and that bolt, there's two of them on either side where the hood meets that's the bolt that holds down the wiper cover plate. So my left hand is holding the socket wrench, and to the right of my thumb you see the gap where the passenger side fender meets that plate, and at 1 o'clock relative to the socket is the hood opened. So here I am just loosening that bolt. In order to take out the HVAC blower motor, North American cars, it's located on the passenger side right at the firewall. There are 3 bolts. 2 of them are under the hood, and 1 of them is underneath the glove box. So this shot is a still shot. I believe that's a 8mm socket you needed to use. So I'm using my 1/4-inch drive sockets with a couple extensions and a universal, and that's taking the bolt out from the HVAC blower motor. What you see there at the bottom half is the backside of the glove box inner storage area. And what I'm doing is feeding a 3/8 drive 10mm socket, deep well, to this socket, this nut that's located behind the glove box inner wall, if you will. And that's what you see me doing, just loosening that. Now, the third and final bolt is another 8mm, and unfortunately my big paws are in the way, but that bolt is inside the exhaust outlet of the blower, and there's a clip that holds it to the metal frame mounted on the firewall. So here I am loosening that. Now with that, I said, okay, I'm going to try to remove the blower motor without loosening the hood. I was just going to either break the blower or damage the hood, one or the other. So after toying with it, I cried uncle, and I just loosened the passenger side of the hood ever so slightly and ever so briefly. You see me taking out the bolts. It is an aluminum hood, so it's very lightweight. You can see me moving it just enough to take the blower out, and I immediately put the bolts. So when I took the blower out, there was a lot of crap underneath it. This is probably one of the last areas where there were still mites nests and leftover. It's clear they were living in the firewall area. Here I am blowing as best I could with compressed air from underneath, because I didn't want to remove the condenser, the heater core, if I didn't have to. So I tried to blow out as much as I could to get it over to the passenger side. And now here you see me vacuuming out. And there's a close-up of the crap that was in this. 40 years of crap in mice. And unfortunately, that, my friends, is a mouse nest. I don't know how old it is. It's certainly before I bought the car. So continued vacuuming everything up. And then it was a matter of getting in there. Not everything was broken up, and you can see me trying to get to the condenser, the heater core, the condenser inside that. I wanted to get all of that cleaned up as best I could without removing it. You see a lot of stuff flying through there. Trying to use a combination of compressed air and vacuum, just cleaned it all up. Once I was satisfied with that, it was a matter of using my steam cleaner to disinfect everything in that area and wipe it down. And here I'm using the Honda cleaner you've seen me use many times before to detail the parts. Something to keep in mind, this is hidden by a panel. I have a replacement panel that goes over this system. It hides the wipers and the blower. So, it's nice that I detailed it, but it's more for disinfecting and ensuring that any air coming into the car doesn't smell. In last week's episode, I had broken the two retaining corners. You see them there just on the, just to the left of my left hand. And those were brass inserts with stuck bolts that seized on both sides, not just even one. So here I am drilling them out, and I said I would come up with a solution, and I did. At first I was trying to use like a rivet style pin, and then I realized that was going to be too long. So once I had the holes drilled out, now I was tapping them for my M6 bolts that I was going to put in. And that's what you see me doing here. I'm just using a tap. I think it's M6 by 1. And threaded that in. Now you see me threading the bolts I want to use. And now that I know they're threaded, I can put them in, put a little Loctite on them, and that way I can put the nuts on the outside. And here I am cutting them down to get them just to the right length that the electrical connector will fit. The resistor pack's all adjusted, and now you have to, with the blower out, it can reach through into the heater core, and here I am pushing it through. You'll see a close-up here in a second. There it is. You can see the two studs are back in the mounting holes, and what I didn't account for on the upper left is the fact that that nut, the nut I envisioned using for it, would probably get in the way of the electrical connector. So here you see me trying to put the nut on the upper left, and I was using a nylon block, but you can already see it's already going to be coming into that connector. And sure enough, when I went to put it on, it just was barely getting on. So that was not a long-term solution. Had to figure something else out. So I liked the stud and the fact it was threaded. I actually had some C-clips from another project, and that's where my paw is hiding right now. But there you see it. It's the C-clip holding that on. That's perfect for this application for a couple of reasons. That C-clip will hold the thread so that it doesn't sink in. The lower right, you don't see it in this shot, but the other nut, I was able to put the locking nut on there, and it's holding it. With the C-clip installed, that gave me enough clearance that I could put the electrical connector in. So it's a solid fit, and I tested it. Everything's working well. So once everything that was in, now I had to loosen the hood again ever so slightly, just for enough time to get that blower tucked in. And this is a long distance shot. That's basically the camera looking over the air filter with one of the straps loosened. And I'm trying to get the blower in place. The process was just cleaning up everything and reversing the 3 bolts that held it in. I really am motivated to get this back on the road, as especially now we are supposed to get some very warm temperatures finally here for the last week of February in central Jersey. So my fingers are crossed that it will actually be warm enough midweek that I can paint the front bumper cover for the car. So knowing that, I started putting the lights back in. Now you see I already put the safety bar back in. I showed that last week's video on how that worked. And here I am detailing the lights and the assemblies before I put them back in. And now I'm rewiring. I'm trying to put all the connections back in. Let me stop here. Unfortunately with these cars, there are a number of different wiring diagrams in the service manual. It's very confusing. The electrical on these cars is confusing enough, but when you look through, so the turn signal relies on 2 connectors. The middle, where in the US model is known as clearance lights, that turn on with the headlights, but they're really a marker light, but they're clear with a plastic lens. Those have four connectors, and then the innermost lights are glass lenses, and those are the fog lights. Now, before I took all this apart, I knew I had a problem with the fog light switch, and it ties back into the instrument vehicle. But everything else was working fine. Turn signals worked fine, the clearance lights and the headlights worked. So I thought I labeled everything, but I did not. Unfortunately, I did not label them the correct way. And I thought I had everything wired. And here you see the parking lights go on and the headlights, of course. But now you see the turn signals are actually going through the parking lights and not the amber. So something was really screwed up here. So what to do? I was very confused by the drawing I had in my service manual, my $600 service manual. And I went online and found a different drawing. But what was odd is, for the American cars, they didn't, if you look on the plug of these lights, they have numbered indicators for the wires. And they actually have lines that 1 goes to 3 and 2 pairs with 4. And so I was very confused by this. The wiring I had was blowing. The wiring diagram I was using, because it was rest of the world or ROW, was actually causing me to blow fuses. The cornering lights were going out. It was blowing 5 amp fuses. So I finally cried uncle late last week and reached out to Renlist, because there's got to be somebody on there that knows something. And sure enough, I reached out on Renlist and said, and started a new thread. Actually started 2 threads. The first one was not getting the answer I needed. Basically, I reframed it in a new thread and said, look, I need a wiring diagram that shows what color wires go to each pin number. And sure enough, my hat's off to Simon on Renlist, who looks like he owns several Porsches, and one of them happens to be an 85 928S as well. He sent me this diagram, and it was a lifesaver, because it's hard to tell in this, but it shows the pin numbers and what color wires and the thickness of the wires. So once I had this in hand, it was, I had really screwed up some of the wiring, and so I went in and did everything. And sure enough, here are the results. You can see the headlights turn on, flip up and turn on the way they're designed. The parking lights or the clearance lights light up in combination with those. If I only put it to position 1 on the headlight switch, the cornering lights work. Most importantly, the amber turn signals up front work in combination with the backs. They work whether the headlights are on or off. So everything's working save for the fog lights, but I know that's an issue. I'm 99% confident that's still an issue with the switch in the instrument vehicle. So that's a future project. Stay tuned for that. So unfortunately, I lost the better part of a day and a half screwing around, waiting for answers from somebody on Renlist, and trying to figure out the wiring myself with a bad wiring diagram. So I didn't get as far as I wanted. What I'm going to do as soon as I finish up this week's video is replacing the horn. That's another component I want to get installed so that I can be street legal with the car without the bumper cover on, driving around. And I'd love to get the car filled up, take it over, and so wish me luck. So that's the progress this week. We made progress. I'm happy. Just didn't get as far as I'd hoped. So hopefully this week we see a lot more going on. So I appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to press the like button and add comments, as that helps the algorithm and get this video spread to other people. And if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to subscribe, as we are now at 1,830 and counting. We're adding about 50 to 60 people a month. And so I'm proud of that. And so keep watching. We're going to get this car out on the road and to some great shows later on this year, Lord willing. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching this video. Please press the like and subscribe button, comment below, and be sure to check out our other videos on this subject, as well as all of the great content on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you can call me at the number listed below, or be sure to check out our main website, guyswithrides.com.